Hi, we are live at Rock Africa Roundtable. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. We are excited to be coming to you today here. Hey, we have a full roundtable with a lot of conversations today. And I am Yato Gloria McIntosh. I am the president of Camiva Productions, and I'm excited to be here with you. I'm one of your moderators today. Your second moderator is a dear friend, a brother of mine, and one of the brains behind our projects at Camiva Productions, our marketing strategist, our go-to person, Mr. Hera John. I welcome you to the roundtable as well. So he is going to be co-moderating with me today for the I Rock Africa roundtable. So welcome to you. At this time, we want to say welcome to the audience as well. We appreciate you tuning in. So much love to you. We are excited about just launching the I Rock Africa Roundtable on Mandela Day. So happy Mandela Day to you. For those of you who know me, I'm a student of Mandela, so that was strategically placed on this particular day. So happy Mandela Day, and we want to say to the House of Mandela, have our deepest sympathy. We know you have a loss in the house, and for anyone from the House of Mandela listening, we say have our deepest sympathy, and we wish you comfort. At this time, we will go around the round table and introduce ourselves, starting with my co-moderator.
Good afternoon, everybody. How you doing? My name is Harold John. I specialize in branding and marketing, and I feel very privileged to be here tonight to basically just share my opinion on this beautiful day with a man that literally set the example on what it is to move forward without being aggressive, but using your senses that was given to you and attacking from a perspective that allow you to be felt. So thank you, yeah. And I look forward to this conversation today.
Awesome, awesome. So just looking at how everybody appear on my end, we are going to start at the top, and she's going to say, "Yes, I know." She's calling me first, Tiki. It just always happens that you're next to me always. So, so we're going to have her introduce herself.
Well, good afternoon, ladies, gentlemen. I'm Tiki Danki Tunde. I went to school with Yeto on VCU, Go Rams. Um, I'm a paramilitary Army, retired at this point, and I just started a company geared towards um, wholeness and holistic treatments and dealing with self. And when we talk of self, we're not talking of only the prima donna-ness of self, but healing from within. All these things that we see going around, how do we channel that so that we are not consumed by it? So
Thanks,
I am
Tiki.
privileged. Let me say that I am very privileged and honored to be here to basically share my opinion as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tiki. And the next person is Blessing.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for watching. My name is Blessing Besa. As you can see, I am a student at Eastern Florida State. I'm doing economics, and I'm also in the Air Force. And I'm also the blog writer of iRock Africa. So I'm very appreciative to be here today.
Thank you so much. And she's now actually our creative blog director. So congratulations. And Amel? I am so sorry, Amel. You're introducing yourself, but I think you're on mute. So
sorry. So my name's Amel Al-Tayyib. I'm VP of Events for Camiva Productions. I have a degree in psychology and criminal justice, and I sometimes volunteer as a court-appointed advocate for children. And I'm currently a student of herbal medicine and skincare formulations.
Thank you. That's our events VP there. Yes. And I see Dora.
Yes, ma'am. Hi, everyone. I am also very, very excited to be here. My name is Dora Dansa Apia. I'm also a VCU alum. I am an entrepreneur, and I've also worked in public service for the past 10 years or so. I'm just very, very excited to be here to share my opinion with what's going on and, how we can move forward as a people.
Awesome, thank you. Seem like the Rams are ruling. Shout out to VCU Rams. So we know we're definitely gonna go to Wafame, and then we'll come back to Bobby. Okay, Bobby's back in. That's good.
Hi, everyone. My name is Wafame Elamin. I am based in Richmond, Virginia. I am Sudanese American, Muslim, Black, immigrant woman living in the Confederate capital of the South. So it's a little bit of a mixed intersectional identity. I'm really glad to be here. Just really glad to join everybody and get this conversation going.
Thanks, Wafame. And now we will have Bobby. It is muted, but I saw it come off mute. You're off mute now.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm having some technical difficulties. I apologize, you all. Okay, my name is Bobby Jones. I'm a domestic violence survivor. I am a special needs mom and advocate. I am also a writer and a speaker, and I'm just blessed to be here with you all to share my input.
Awesome. So there you have it. This is our roundtable coming to you today. We are excited to be with you, but we are going to start off. It's Mandela Day, right? So we are going to start off with our favorite Mandela quote, right? So mine is there is no passion to be found playing small in settling for a life that is less than the one you are capable of living. This quote is just one that has driven me. I believe that your drive is truly your success, right? Most times we define success as in, when you have the wealth and everything else. But I believe your drive is truly your success because for every time you are knocked down, you can get back up. That's your success right there. And there's no passion in playing small, living a life, less than what you were created to live. So for me, that is my favorite Mandela quote. And we're going to go around the round table and everyone can share the Mandela quote as well.
Everybody, am I off mute? Okay, good. So mine's is because everything I do, my company name is a dreamer company. So anything that I found that's a favorite quote have to have dreamers in it. So I found mine from Mandela. It's a winner, it's a dreamer who never gives up. One of the philosophy that I believe in strongly is that in life, you never really make mistakes. You just go through opportunities for you to learn, right? So when I saw that quote, it touched me personally because I realized with all of the challenges coming from Liberia, coming to the United States, feeling all of the different adversities that I had to go through, I always fought. And it allowed me to get the necessary wisdom to also help the younger generation to overcome their burdens and even my kids. So when I saw that, that's like it hit home because again, I believe that everybody in this life is a dreamer. And the difference in those that accomplish their dreams are the ones that don't give up and just keep trying regardless the obstacles that they face. So that's my favorite quote. A winner is a dreamer who never gives up.
It's a beautiful one.
Mhm.
So next person.
I absolutely love that, John, and I think it ties in very well with this one for me. It says, "Be passionate. Everyone can rise above their circumstances and achieve success if they are dedicated to and passionate about what they do." That says that screams to me tiki all the way because just like your adversity has plagued my life, but When you get to a point of maturity, when it is no longer adversity, but a learning opportunity, then you are able to internalize it, change the negative perceptions, and use it for your benefit. More importantly, use it to help others. My life circumstances, um, I have done everything right, and nothing shows currently that trajectory. But if I were one to say, you know what, woe is me, and just sit in my, downcastedness, then nothing, life would be very terrible. But the moment we begin to pick up what you are passionate about, would be the things that give you the most struggles as I have found. But it makes such a great impact when you begin to teach others, when you begin to tell your story, and you begin to become impactful as you see the changes or the ripples of what you're doing as it is affecting others. This is what this time is about. I think that based on what we have all experienced collectively, we can make a great impact, a great change for a better tomorrow, so that our children and our generations to come don't have to suffer the same fate. All right.
That's awesome. We're still going around. Just hop on in if you
I
have
will.
your.
Just to
Okay,
piggyback off of
I'll go
Harold.
next.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I guess we're both going to piggyback off of her. So, for me, I feel like the quote I picked also speaks to that because the quote says, "May your choices reflect your hope, not your fears." And it's especially important for me personally, with me being domestic violence survivor, to know um, this is something that I've learned on my own personal journey. The choices that you make cannot be fear based because you keep recreating that same situation over and over. And when we create the same situations and we create those same situations for our children and their children, we're literally making choices for generations when we make fear based choices. And so that's pretty much why I like that quote. And it also does help to contribute to the change that you even want to see in the world, because who knows how the choices you're making are impacting the people around you within your community and just anyone that you interact with.
Okay, and I'll say mine. My favorite one's education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Um, I think knowledge is power, and we should always seek knowledge and learn. Be open to learn. It's the best way to learn, to grow, and to have a positive impact on the communities. And yeah.
My favorite Mandela quote is the one that deals with hate. And it says, "No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background or his religion. People must learn to hate. And if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. For love comes more naturally to the human heart than it is opposite." So this quote really like does touch me because as human beings, like we all share this like common humanity. And I feel like so many times we allow the labels to define us away from this common humanity that we have. And it's so important that we learn to unlearn those destructive narratives of labels that we've been thought to enforce on others. So that's why I like it. Yeah.
I think I'm next. So, and one of my favorite things about Nelson Mandela and Mandela Day is that it's a day of action and to inspire change. That's one of the biggest things. And Blessing, you actually took my one, but I had a second one. So this one is, I am fundamentally an optimist. Whether that comes from nature or nurture, I cannot say. Part of being optimistic is keeping one's head pointed toward the sun, one's feet moving forward. There were many dark moments when my faith in humanity was sorely tested, but I would not and could not give myself up to despair. That way lays defeat and death. And I think just with everything that's going on right now, it's so timely. And I often find myself in moments where like I'm really low, but somehow like my joy and like my hope for humanity is always restored just by the people around me. So definitely holding on to my optimism it's a survival tactic, but it's also just a core part of who I am.
So awesome. So we just want to say happy Mandela Day again from Kamiba Productions and from Aroc Africa and from all of us here online. And we are going to transition into why we are here
Oh, I
today.
didn't say
Oh,
mine.
I am so sorry, Laura. Listen, I do apologize. I thought, I'm
No
looking at the screen
problem.
and Wafa Day is at the end. I just assumed everyone had gone. Apologies.
No problem. Mine is, and I had actually never heard this until I was looking up um, quotes for today. And mine is, "Your playing small does not serve the world. Who are you not to be great?" And I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but it really spoke to me when I saw that, because I think sometimes as a people we limit ourselves and we don't always try to, sometimes we do it and trying to be humble, but we don't always think that we can do more than we're capable of. So I just think that that's really awesome, that we have to be great. We have to stop thinking small and, start thinking really, really big. So.
Now we can say happy Mandela Day, right? I do apologize. So happy Mandela Day to everyone out there, and from all of us here at the round table, and from Kamiba Productions and all of our various companies. We have around this table right now, we have people with different companies, nonprofit. Everyone's doing something very productive. So from all of our brands, we say happy Mandela Day to you as well. So just a little bit about, the Our Rock Africa project. It's already 2:20 and we have a good discussion ahead. So we are not going to take much of your time with that, but I will invite you to visit Our Rock Africa at ourrockafricahub.com, and also on well, if you're watching it right now, you're on our Facebook already. So please like our Facebook page and also follow us on Instagram at I_rock Africa. We really do appreciate it. On the store, we have a shop, we have information, we have the blog. Blessing is the creative director of the blog, and she's currently recruiting for writers. So if you are interested in writing for the Rock Africa project, please do. Rock Africa is a premier hub. We are establishing this as the go-to place for a marketplace for African creative sector, for the creative sector, where you can also obtain cultural information as well in terms of just happenings on the continent and so forth. But we are here to also have these tough conversations. One of the reasons Rock Africa was started is to bridge the gap in the African and the African diaspora community. So we're excited to be here today talking about this, and this is a step toward that. As well, we are going to be bringing back our Rock Africa Forum. For those of you who attended it a couple of years ago, I'm excited to say we are bringing back the forum, Rock Africa, bounded by roots, defined by labels. And the forum is actually going to be held on October 3rd. So watch out for more information for that. So Rock Africa sits in the home of Kamiba Productions. Kamiba Productions interfaces the creative sector, the self-improvement sector, and we're diving into the retail, where we're producing T-shirts and some other things. So please follow us as well on Kamiba Productions. And I will give the time right now before we would give the time right now. If anyone, just because I know we're going to be end the conversation later on, and I don't want us to forget it, but I will give this time right now for everyone to shout out their companies before we just hop into the conversation, because we have a good conversation on Blackness and defining Blackness and violence specifically around police brutality and other types of violence as well.
I suppose I'll start. I'm Tiki again from my company is called the Euphoric Palace, where we're currently producing homemade bath bombs aimed at reducing pain in the body, moisturizing your body, and giving you some me time, some time to zen, some time away from the world, some time away from every stressor, just an opportunity to relax, especially with what's going on. A lot of tense bodies. I could use a massage, but without that, I can soak in a bathtub and drink some wine. Now, I currently have a website, the euphoricpalace.com. If you Google it up, go check us out.
All right. So, anybody else want to highlight before we go right into the conversation?
Sure, real quick. My company is Tina Rose Events. I do wedding decor, floral design. So if you're getting married or having an event, we know it's not the right time now, before, later in the year or whenever this pandemic slows down, it's over. I'm your go-to girl. You can follow me on all social media platforms at Tina Rose Events.
And I'll go really quickly. I don't have a company, but I do have a website that kind of highlights all of my human rights work, social justice advocacy, and grassroots organizing. I'm starting a newsletter up pretty soon where I'm just going to be sharing about different events going on that I know of, my thoughts on various things. So I'll probably definitely reach out. The blog sounds really interesting, so I want to be a writer. So just a heads up, guys.
That's good news. Harry?
Oh, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Harold. My company specializes in branding and marketing. So one of the things that I have realized is within the African community, the African American community, that's a lack of brand structuring and proper marketing strategies. So once I realized that, I started really just working initially just with people that I knew to make sure that I have my formula right in order for me to launch. So August 15, I am going to be launching my company called Dreamers Company that's going to be working with minority-owned business that literally want to properly brand and structure themselves. And I just become your support background. Go
You have a client. Tiki's like, yeah, yes, me.
ahead. Yeah,
Awesome.
so
So,
definitely.
so we're going to dive into this conversation right away. And if all cameras on and we're ready to go. So we have a good conversation ready for you. And I'm going to turn over to Mr. John right now, where we start talking about Blackness in our community. And we are both co-moderating this. So we're going to go back and forth. It's a round table. I just want to remind everyone watching that this is a round table. If you just think about it, kitchen table talk, right? It's just pretty much opinions of others, their lived experiences and what they bring to the table. So please remember that as well. And we are looking forward to your comments. So please comment and let us know how you feel. Share. Invite your friends so they can be able to watch and engage in this conversation as well. So there we go.
Okay, so basically, one of the things for me is everything I talk from a marketing perspective. So sometimes you may see that I'm always going to be neutral and always try to be politically correct in how I approach things. But and I'm very keen on wording. So one of the things when we are talking about it, just from your personal experience, what you feel it means to be black, because a lot of the time we get caught up in the wording and the meaning of the word, but not really the personal attachment that's attached to it, the sentiment that's attached to it. So for me, from my personal experience, what it means to be black is very vague because my family setup is so diverse that it's hard to really approach it from that perspective. But one of the things that I realized, especially being an African man in America, you do experience stuff because of your skin color. So there is a blind spot that exists with the people that are around me, that I start realizing, like, okay, as a black man in America, you do experience things a lot different than your counterparts. But in essence, for me, my blackness means that I have to strive for the best and never strive for nothing less. I have to make sure at all time that I have a full understanding of the obstacles that I'm going to face so I could better prepare myself for it. Right? So for me, blackness mean the challenges that you're going to face, that you're going to meet black spots within your life that you have to overcome. So when anybody tell me, okay, your blackness, yes, that's my ability to be prepared to capitalize on any opportunity that's presented to me. So it's not my skin color, it's the fact that I'm going to meet different obstacles regardless what sector I go in. I'm going to be blacked out, and how am I going to turn in the light in that situation? So that for me, what blackness is. It's the different challenges and different obstacles that I'm going to face throughout my lifetime, and how am I going to be prepared to overcome those obstacles? Like I said, I'm always looking at it from a marketing perspective, so I apologize.
That's awesome. So I so some anybody else would like to chip into that as well.
Actually, yes, I am in complete marketing or not. That's your hashtag truth. Um, and it rung a bell when you said an African man doing in America or living in America. The bells in my head went off because when I left Cameroon, my mama, these were her words. Make sure you don't get into any fights because I don't have money to get you out of jail. That definitely straightened me in line with what I knew as an African or as a black. Actually, then it didn't make sense. The sense was that don't go to jail. But as we grow and life, you experience life, her words are words of wisdom. Now, because when you look at an African in America, you don't only get comments from white folk, from everybody else, including African Americans. Then you have to check to yourself, what is my identity or how do I fit in here? But as you mentioned earlier, we are a sum of our circumstances or our experiences. Then for me, I have to be more than passionate about what I am. And as I am learning and continually growing, not only who I am, but how am I showing up in the world? Am I representative of myself or who I want to be, or my word is my authentic self? Is my authentic self true to who I am? And who I am the African queen. Hello. If you did not know it, you better recognize. In that statue, I define myself as a Black woman. And it doesn't matter what anybody else defines me as, but how I see myself. Do I have peace? Where is my peace coming from? In my case, from the Almighty God. And when He says He created me in His image, I am beginning to embody that sentence. If I was created in the image of my Father, then nothing anyone says can deter me or should be able to deter me from that. And my life circumstances, a compilation of those, are only leading to that aspect. It doesn't matter what you say. It matters how I see myself and how God sees me. Now, still keeping in mind with the professionalism, can never deviate from that aspect there. That's Blackness to me.
Awesome.
I'd like to piggyback on that because that's kind of my line of thought on being Black is twofold. One is an individual, and two as a community. So for me, being Blackness is in itself two parts. I'm an individual. I'm myself, my thoughts, my processes, etc. But no matter what I do, I always have to think twofold. Not only am I representing myself, I'm representing a community. In my workplaces, I have one colleague. We're the only two Black people in our entire department. So we always have to have that in mind, that one, not only are we representing ourselves, that we are here, we worked hard to get here, but we're also looking at it from the outside of others viewing us, that yes, we are the only two Black people in there. So our actions, everything that we're doing, we always have to think about, okay, we're representing that. Part of that is, in a way, societal, but I've come to accept that I'm not only just representing myself, I'm representing the community in general. And really, for those of us that are also immigrants, or I'm Ghanaian, so I always have to think about it that way as well. That I'm the person, I'm the Ghanaian, and I'm the Black person. So that's how I see it in layers.
Thank you. So, Bobby? You're muted.
Okay, my mic does not want to come off mute. Okay. Am I still muted? Can you all hear me?
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, there's a little lag on my end. I apologize. Okay, so the first thing I thought about when asked what is Blackness to me, number one, being born here in America, the number one thing that comes to mind is don't become a statistic. I'm a Black woman as well, so for the different genders experience different things, but it's twofold. For me, it was become as educated as possible. Never let your opponent see you sweat. Um, it has been quite a journey, just even with the whole thing of what Black women appear to be in America. And even now, it's still in a constant state of change. However, I do agree that we define Blackness for ourselves. That has been my journey to become the best woman that I can be while still being cognizant of the fact that I am representing my culture. I am representing my family. I grew up with I was told, you're representing this family. And so even the family culture, I was representing that as well. So Blackness to me, basically for me, that I've defined it as, means community. And it means doing the best you can, educating yourself the best way that you can to bring about the greater good of the community. So it starts with it starts with yourself, and then your family, and then you all can go on out and affect the community.
Awesome. That's good. And if I may,
So I've juggled around a lot with this question, coming to the United States very young, being an immigrant, and learning the harsh reality of, escaping a dictatorship to only come somewhere that we're still not accepted here as well. So it's been like an adaptive learning experience. But I would definitely say with like my intersectional identities that I've kind of come to terms with the fact that my Blackness is beautiful. It's the pigmentation and the melanin it's a blessing in of itself, and it radiates so much. And I used to say I was African American, and I was educated by my friends who told me, that's really just the definition for someone who is born in America and has African ancestry. So typically it's usually like the ancestors of slaves, their ancestors are slaves. But all in all, like my Blackness and Blackness in general is it's just love. It's a kind of essence and spirit that you can't really replicate. And once you are exposed to it, I think a lot of people, it's contagious. It can't be replicated, but it can be inspiring.
I think that there are a couple of people to go, but there's such a something here. Everyone saying, defining blackness as what you identify, what you come to the table with, your lived experience, as well as a sense of community. And you touched on something like I used to say. I am apt to find myself as African American, but blackness is or saying I'm black is just love, and it reminds me of a conversation. It reminded me of a conversation that I had with a friend a couple of years ago, who tend to go between the two. Who is African American, has not done the DNA test yet, so does not know where per se ancestors came from, but her definition of her changed from African American to Black, in her opinion, because she felt that it embodied everything that she had lived and went through. So just to hear that echo here again is interesting. So I know we have gone. I know we have Amel and Blessing to go, and both of you could go before we move on.
I don't have much to say, but I feel like it does start with yourself and who you are. Um, for one, I was born here, also Sudanese American. Um, so it's knowing who you are, who your experiences, and loving yourself, finding your place in the community, and yeah.
Um, I think my definition of blackness is a little bit more political and a little bit more mainstream. Um, when I define blackness, I define it more as an experience that I've had to deal with because years back there were three races created: the Caucasoid, the Mongoloid, and the Negroid. And because my features and my skin color was more related to the Negroid race, and that was defined more so as the lesser than. So my experience has been shaped by that narrative that was spread throughout the world. So that's where I define my blackness from. And again, it's very literal, very political, and very mainstream.
But that actually sets the transition into our next conversation. So I'm just gonna hop on and say that real quick. Tiki wanted to add something to that before we transition.
Yes, please. You ladies and sir are brilliant, but the this is why this conversation is going to be important. And if you are not a part of the evidence talk last week or 2 weeks ago on relationships, when I hear of us collectively talking about blackness, it says to me relationship. What is your relationship with self? What is your identity, your status, before we start transitioning to interpersonal relationships, to the community, and then to the society? If we as individuals have an issue or do not define self in a positive image, then we are going to show up with interpersonal relationships and in our communities on a negative side. However, this talk then I think is very important because it shows that the Black individual, however you define yourself, we have been endowed with a strength and a level of resilience that surpasses any other race I have come across or I have been able to interact with. The resilience, and Ms. Wafa said, love. Blackness is love. Ultimately, when you look at our communities, we strive to interact with one another. We strive to learn from one another. We strive to that's my brother, that's my homie, that's my this. There is this level of togetherness that if only we can rise up above what we define as self, and or if our self becomes integrated so that everybody loves themselves, and then you see this spread. It's like this chain reaction of love and resilience and dedication. That's what the Black person is endowed with.
That that's just that you hit it right there. How we show up, how we perceive ourselves, and then how it transitions into our interpersonal and community space and in society. And you and Blessing both transition us beautifully into how does how what is your take on how the Black community is portrayed, or how what is your take on how the term blackness is portrayed in society? What is your take on that? Be it positive or negative, and we just want to hear from you. What is your take on that?
I think it comes from, and I'm just gonna piggyback of this whole identity thing because that's something that I'm really passionate about as well. Um, it really is rooted in the identity that we were given, I will say. And this is for anybody, anywhere that you may be as a Black person. We have yet, I heard something so powerful today that said to divorce yourself from your idea of identity. We have yet to completely separate ourselves from the identity that was bestowed upon us wherever we were dropped off. You'll see a common thread. None of us have complete, I'm not going to say none of us because you all are here. For the vast majority, though, the idea of who we are has not come from here. It hasn't come from here. It's come from society's ideals, which have been passed down from what? From colonialism, from slavery, from whatever. And so the correlation between blackness and violence and all of this, you're going to have a strong correlation for the simple fact the first even idea, if you want to say, of just, oh, blacks are just extremely violent and they're extremely savages, even. That came from colonialism. That came from the slave trade. That came from an idea outside of ourselves. And the thing is that we need to get back to or even create what we think that we are. If we never divorce ourselves from this idea, then we will always continue to see in mainstream media. Blacks are more violent. Well, we're more violent. Why? What is the reasoning behind it? Where are we disenfranchised? Where do we not have? Where do we lack? And then where do we learn this behavior from? Because there's somewhere that we have learned it from that no one wants to talk about. And that's one of the main things as well. Where did it come from? If your first idea, wherever, like I said, wherever the ship landed, if the first idea was, oh, it's okay for these people to be violent against us. So this is the idea. Well, I think we're animals too. Let's be violent together. No. And we've yet to cut off that idea. And even those of us that don't think and act that way, there's tons of us that don't do any of those things. But the main idea in the media is we're violent. Let's stop the crime with you all first. Then we'll stop. But we have to form our own identity and we have to push our own agenda so that that way the overall idea can change. We have a tremendous opportunity right now. The whole world is silent but speaking. That's what I say. The whole world is sitting back watching. And the whole world wants to see what the Black man in particular is going to do right now. We have an opportunity to change the narrative. And it starts with discussions like this. This is a part of changing the narrative. This is a part of reclaiming our identity as a culture because we get to say who we are now and we get to say what we will do.
Beautifully said. I can add to that based on just experience, right? But one of the things that I have come to realize, regardless how you are portrayed, a person' ability to look and like break down information is based on what information they have within, right?
Mhm.
So if we're looking at the overall experience of those of African descent, and you're wondering why these things keep repeating itself and why there's the ability to condition a group of people, you have to look at how these individuals receive their information, right? There's a teaching that goes by, there's two parts. There's the body, there's the soul, and there's the mind, right? And in society, there's us, right? There's the people that rules, and then there's the medium, which is the media that provides the information. The other information is always readily available, but it's how do they consume the actual information. The need to self-edify is allow a person to be able to decipher what's being thrown at them. And one thing that you realize when you go within our community, the wantingness to edify themselves is not there. So we can have all of these conversations. We can sit down and talk about police brutality. We can sit down and talk about somebody coming in and calling us the N-word. We can talk about Black Lives Matters. We can go across the board and talk about all of these things, but it comes back to the why. Why is this happening? Why is it that the media is able to go into our community and influence it? Why is it that the news outlets cover us in a certain light? Why is it that we don't view our cultural ideology a certain way? Why is it in the school? We can go on and on and on. But at the end of the day, are we receiving the information? Within our community, when we look at it, what is the wantingness to change, right? And when you look at it, you look at everybody, you'd be like, oh my God, it's amazing. I could sit down. I'm in New York, right? And through my personal experience, I went from Liberia. When I came to Liberia, I came into the United States. When we came into the United States, we went into the projects. When I came out of the projects, I had a different mindset. My mother fought to put me in a school where there was all white kids. So when we went to the school that was all white kid, I realized that my perspective and how I view life was limiting my ability to progress. So I had to change. So through all my different phases, the wanting to change and the wanting to edify myself is what allowed me to advance. I have made mistakes, but I always am willing to change. I'm always willing to edify myself. So, like for me, success is not being able to learn something new every day. So every day I have to get up and learn something new. Every day I search out new information. But what I realized, the problem that we have when it comes to people portraying us a certain way is our lack to edify ourselves within our community. And I think that's the root of all our problem, the wantingness to learn and the wantingness to change. So I'll leave it over there. Anybody can pick it back off of that.
Well, before someone go, I know there's a, I hope I get this right. There's a Mandela quote that says, I never lose. I don't win or learn. I never lose. I don't win or learn. And that is, uh, one of those things that we need to keep in mind. And we never really lose. We either win or learn. And our situations we go through, even as a Black community, should be an opportunity. We understand that there are a lot of challenges and all things that actually come against us, racism and so forth, be it structural or just outblank racism on an individual basis. But there is a learning opportunity in everything, and that learning from both of you, what you both said, that learning is important because what we have within, what we have learned, is how we're going to show up. So if we are not building ourselves and learning from our circumstances, how are we going to show up to even effect change, right? So I'm just piggybacking on what you both said, and I'll open the floor to everybody else on the same conversation around how we shape in how the narrative is shaped in the society for us, and what should we do to change that.
I would proceed by saying I was one of those when I was in Cameroon. I came when I was 15, but all I had heard about African Americans or Black people, they're violent, they're up to no good, they're this and they're that. and it perpetuated what I thought. And when I came and I saw what I had heard, so I stayed away. I tried to come close to my African folk, but then I saw that some of these behaviors were transitioning to the Africans that I was coming close to that had been here long enough. It made me think. But it was not only until I started experiencing some of those racism and backlash and what the media was saying, what I was learning in school. I was like, wait a minute, wait a minute. The struggles of an African American in this country is is like you are given um, you are tied both hands and feet and then asked to climb up a hill. How is that possible? Your resources are extremely limited. Even to those who make it, you have had to fight and fight. Why is that perpetuated? Then I also realized as there's a different identity for an African in America, because what we define as African America are those who are born here, who are ancestors of slaves, forgetting that we are all the same people. But when you come from Africa in this new age, um, there's no difference. We are still black. So we go through the same problems, but not only are we struggling with issues from the motherland, we are struggling with issues from here. So it's a double fold or double whammy to that. But while in the military, a white officer said to me, "Oh, sir, don't worry about her. She's just a pretty face." And I was like, "What?" But then what John said earlier, you have to work twice as hard, sometimes 3 and 4 times. I barely got any sleep, and insomnia is still plaguing me because I made sure I was in every meeting. There was nothing going on around my area of operation that I did not know. I made sure that every information that came close, I was on top of it, so that what you are exerting so much of yourself for what? And barely meeting what the bare standards of other races have to go through. It doesn't matter how much you do. Then I came to realize, as much as I began, I fell into depression, anxiety. Like, am I showing up right? Am I doing this right? You're all. It's exhausting. Man, as I tried to get over all of that, I began to seek the word of God in my life. And that's where I began to find my identity. How it is that I am showing up. How is it that everybody else around me is defining me? And is it in line with how I define me? Because that is definitely the warfare is in the mind. If we cannot conquer our mind, or we cannot grow enough to say, you know what, I love me. God loves me. I too must love me. But then reach out to the people around you that love you. How is the media showing up? However, they are showing up, it has not been in favor of me. It has never been in favor of me. However, I am going to do my best and my ultimate best to make sure that anybody that looks like me, well, everybody else included, but more importantly, anyone who looks like me knows that they are loved, knows that they can come for help. I can help you in whatever way, shape, or form I possibly can. And know that however I am showing up, I have my cranky days. But with that said, you understand, you know me, like, yo, Yeto, I'm so sorry. I'm a little cranky today. I can't quite show up. You like, you know, it's okay. And give me leeway to be cranky for a little bit and come back to the nice and pleasant self. But if us as Black folk start to learn how to be um, patient with one another, something I'm still working on. The Lord is working on me on that. Learn to be patient and accepting of one another, accepting our flaws, our strengths, go through that SWAT thing, our weaknesses, allowing each of us to to shine in our areas of expertise. Then I think we will be a little bit more cohesive than what the media portrays us, because to my knowledge, it is not portrayed me, unless you're a basketball player, then you get different levels of issues. But yeah.
So before we go on to someone else, you said something about how African Americans are perceived in in Cameroon, for instance, or in parts of Africa. Even you have the two conversations going. You see the positive and you see the negative. I think being from Liberia, we get to see two because we had, you know, uh, we have a portion of our population who returned from here. So that narrative is also built in our culture in Liberia as well. So sometimes the Liberian experience is complex. Let me just put it that way. It's complex when we show up in the US. But also we see that here too, right? We see where African Americans here also get another narrative of what Africa is like. I was speaking to someone and say, you know what, you need to go with me, you know, to Africa when, you know, I was hoping to go this year. But COVID had another thing coming. But you know, I said you need to go with me when. No, 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 no. I can't go to Africa. Oh no, I have to be safe. I cannot go to Africa. And I said, "Well, okay, you're going with me. Number one, number two, yes, you will be safe even if you don't go with me, right? So I just want before we go around again, I just wanted Bobby to just let us know her experience of what you heard about being here and you know what you heard about Africa, what you grew up hearing, so that when that African person shows up in the U.S., then how do they truly show up in your mind because of what was portrayed as well?
Okay, so while you were talking, I was laughing because it truly depends on the neighborhood you grow up in as a you know, as a black kid in America. If you grow up in the hood, and if especially if you grew up when I grew up in the '90s, you know, and I'd say late '80s, early '90s, um, yeah, it was Africans are dirty, they stink. Oh my gosh, this and that. But once again, as Harold said, it's their view is very limited at times. Um, due to well, I pretty much say that when you grow up in those types of areas, sometimes it can be like a microcosm. It's that one little world. You got to survive in that world, and that's it. No outsiders. All of this, anybody else, they're just bad news. Even if we saw a white person come in, what are they doing here? They're up to no good. That kind of thing. But as I transitioned from that area to the suburbs when I became a teenager, there's all types of people. You know, I mean, just any race you could think of. And so the narrative shifted. Then I was less than, and the African was better. And I even had friends from well, they weren't from Africa, they were born here, but their parents, you know, and they would say, I said, oh, okay, like we're having this conversation here. Back then, no, they were not black, and they made sure to separate themselves from you in the well-to-do areas. I'm not black, you're black. And I said, what? I'm not black, I'm Nigerian. I said, okay, all right. And so that's been even still now to this day, as I'm older, that's been the narrative that and that's been what I've experienced. If I want to say, if it even came time to get a job or get into school or anything like that, um, not all the time, but there are times where you will be passed over for someone else because you know you're a Black American and you all do this and you all do that. And so going forward, like I said, as I got into the more well-to-do areas and all of that, no, Africans weren't viewed in a negative light. Um, I heard much of the same of what I've heard here. That African Americans, you all have perverted the culture. You do this, you do that. So there was a separation there. So yeah, for pretty much over half of my life, Africans have been viewed where I have been, and I've lived in 4 different states as well. They've been viewed in a much better light. I would say maybe for me and what I've heard from my peers, '80s, '90s, yeah. it was some of that crazy stuff. Africa's the jungle. It's this, it's that. But as we all became more socialized with other races, no, that's not the case. We didn't think that at all. In fact, some of us probably even viewed you all as better. So, and that's been my experience.
Definitely. I know Wafabe has something to add to that conversation, and then we'll go to Dora as well.
Yeah, so I think that this is all just the remnants of colonialism are just like unraveling before our eyes. We've all been knowledgeable of them, and I think a lot of the divisiveness within Blackness, I kind of think of being Black as a global thing, right? Like no matter where you are, what continent you're on as part of the diaspora, you're still Black, right? People are going to view you as Black, and the institutions that Western world and like I guess the more developed and successful nations were built on didn't include the narrative of people who looked like us, right? We were excluded from it. And I think when we think about like 400 years ago, this has been a 400-year conversation, right? Like a 400 years of post-slavery or after slavery, just telling people and trying to advocate and trying to say like we're humans too. And within my own Sudanese community, I think I've noticed it as well as like maybe it's like large scale. I agree, Bobby, that there is this concept within African immigrant communities that establishes like some sort of like superiority, which I've been trying really hard to like unlearn. I mean, I myself don't think that, but like unteach the people in my community about it. Especially around the Black Lives Matter being amplified on a global scale. It's become a global revolution, a global movement. Trying to tell people who are maybe in Sudan, like you are actually Black, has been weirdly enough a challenge. But I think that's the point, right? Like it's supposed to be challenging. We're supposed to break down these silos within our own community because we didn't create them. We weren't told, we didn't think we were savages. Way back when you think of like African history in the continent, we were explorers. We conquered other nations and other lands, but never ever did we strip away the culture and identity and practices and routines of the people within the tribes, right? You kind of kept them just to establish them. So I think that when you look at colonialism and what's happened, it was a very direct intention. Let's strip away all of your individuality and all of your identity to put you in these boxes. So right now it's happening like fast, rapid pace, and everyone is looking to anyone who has Black skin or dark colored skin to be like, well, what should we do? It's like, well, we've been telling you for years. Like it's getting exhausting. And I think a lot of us are just reliving a lot of traumas over and over. I kind of like freeze up when I'm driving and I see a police car. Like I like will always like find myself driving very close to the speed limit, and when it's just like a very tense situation that I just don't think other people will ever be able to understand that narrative. So it's a lot of our social responsibility has fallen on us to build ourselves up while simultaneously building up this revolution. And like, it's a journey.
Definitely.
I'd actually like to explain. Go ahead.
Yes, definitely. I just wanted to say something because I want us to go to Dora. And then we'll come back to a point you just made, Wakame, when I turn it over to Ishay to go over, to transition us into talking more about violence. But one of the things I loved this gone December was the year of return to Ghana, because I felt it was an opportunity to bridge the gap, right? To bridge the gap, to have people on the continent, as well as to have people on the continent interact with people coming from Diaspora, in a way, to have that interaction happen on the continent in the 400 year, by the way. It was just one of the things I was very emotional about. Very, 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 if I could could say very 3 times. I was emotional about it. And I visited Ghana, and I would say uh, Liberia has a heritage too when it comes to African Americans. Like, we have that history between us. For those of you who may not know, we have a portion of our population that returned after slavery to Africa, and they settled within the Sierra Leone and Liberia area, Liberia area, and so we have that introduction there. We have our own, you know, complex situation because of that within our own country, but we have that knowledge of it somehow. So when I visited Ghana, it was interesting to also just see the pre-colonialism, like the history. If you visit museums and you get to see, for instance, the queens from before and so forth. So before we transition into violence, and I know Dora is coming to talk about how is Blackness is portrayed, but I just want you to also touch on that. Just come from a Ghanaian standpoint and the history to Ghanaians have within their country. And I don't know how it's embraced within the country, but as a foreigner visiting Ghana, I was very impressed.
Thank you, Yeto. It's just, you already know how I feel about this issue because we've had our one-on-one on it. But as Bobby and Wafame were talking, and they both hit on very different aspects of the subject. I've had it twofold where, I came here, I was 11 years old. And my first experience, I went to a school, I grew up in a very, very diverse neighborhood here in Falls Church. And most of us being African American, we had Hispanic, etc. And as a Ghanaian 11-year-old girl, my African American friend told me that I wasn't Black. And that confused the mess out of me because my first ever fist fight in school was over that subject because I didn't understand. I was like, I'm darker than you. Like, what do you mean I'm not Black? Like, I just couldn't understand that. And it went from there to, kind of, I myself eventually kind of, through the high school years, kind of separated myself because even though I didn't accept it when she told me that, eventually I kind of got to that mindset where I was like, okay, maybe I'm Black, but maybe I'm not African American. So I myself kind of grew up kind of having that separate mindset that, okay, I'm Ghanaian, I am Black, but I'm Ghanaian, I'm not African American. And then eventually transitioning back to, okay, we're all Black. Like, what are we doing? We're all Black. We all check that same box. When I'm applying for scholarships for school, for whatever, when I'm applying for jobs, nobody's asking me if I'm Ghanaian. The only box that I have is, are you of African descent or are you African American? So we're all checking that box. So I've become really, especially with everything that's going on now, I've become just really trying to help. There's still people in the African community that think, I'll speak from the Ghanaian perspective. I've had conversations with family members who still look at it as, oh, well, we're not, Black in that sense. We're not African American, we're Ghanaian. And I'm like, hello, from a white person looking at us, we're all Black. So I've become just really passionate about getting people educated in that sense that, hey, we are all the same people. Like, when I was in the Caribbean, people will come up to me. I was in Barbados, and people will come up to me and start speaking, in like the local Bajan dialects, and because they automatically assumed that I was Bajan. It's just wherever you go, we are the same people. And it's about time we as a people come to recognize that, that our skin, our culture is what, unites us, what makes us as a people, regardless of how, whether I was born on the continent or whether I, born here or whether my ancestors were slaves, etc. We are one people. And again, to answer your question on the slave trade aspect of it, you will be surprised how many people in Ghana do not understand slavery or the slave trade. Maybe these days with social media and everything going on, maybe people are more cognizant of what happened. But growing up in Ghana as a kid, our textbooks did not focus on slavery or, just anything African American culture. We didn't have that. We were learning more about British history than we were learning about, the slave trade. So it's very, very sad. And I've been trying to figure out what they're learning now in schools, these days. But when I was growing up, we didn't have that. We were learning about British history, the Queens and things like that, more so than our own people. Again, from that colonial mindset, because it was a British colony. That's what we were taught in school. So it's just trying to get ourselves educated more, I think, is what's going to really get us to understand and relearn that mindset, as Tiki mentioned before, that we have to get out of that mindset. We are the same people. The only way we are divided is because of what was done to us, starting from slavery, colonialism, and then systemic racism. There's so much that's been fought against us. So it's about time we unlearn that and just realize that we are the exact same people.
Yeah, and going off of what Dora just said, I was in Falls Church as well, and in like Fairfax County, which is one of the top 2 counties in the nation, and being in Virginia, which is the first slave state where everything kind of went down, that set the standard. We were taken on field trips to plantations, right? Like that was a thing that we did every, like in 4th grade or 5th grade. Everyone looked forward to going to like Williamsburg or like Colonial Williamsburg. And but the curriculum itself, when we were learning about slavery, I think it was like, maybe I remember I was so confused because I came to the US and when I was 5 years old. So when we learned about, I just saw a whole bunch of people who looked like me packed in ships, and I had so many questions. But we talked about it for less than a week or less. It wasn't even like a continued curriculum. And then when we were at the actual plantations, like it's just a long time ago and I can't remember it, but I don't have any recollection of them ever saying anything about slavery while we were on the plantations, right? Like I remember, I've also heard cases of people, children picking cotton when they visit plantations, for like school field trips, like educational field trips. So it just makes it more and more clear that the institutions like actually completely disregard that part of history. There's like these big blinders on of like, oh, it didn't happen. We're all successful. So it's that's one thing that like always stands out to me, is like, why wasn't there enough? Why don't we learn enough about it? Why don't we talk about it enough?
Sorry everybody, my phone's like all over the place. I would love to strum in on what Dora said, but I didn't hear nothing she said. For some reason, every time Dora speaks, it's like all I see is a mouth moving. I don't see nothing else. It's funny because just hearing what you what Fame said. Did I pronounce that properly, Wafame? Okay. Just saying what she said, I could assume exactly what you said, Dora. But one of the things what it comes down to, when you just look at just how we receive information and how other people receive information to us, it all comes down to how everything is marketed, right? When you look at just economics and when you're living in a capitalistic world, one of the things that you have to understand that it comes down to capital, right? So everything is going to be marketed for an end game. We're going to market to them these information to allow these people to get this or to get that, right? So with the marketing that have happened and have happened for a generation, it portray us as individuals that cannot be trusted, individuals that are less part than the rest. We're dirty with this, with the negative connotation that is attached to it is only attached to us because of the marketing campaign of some company, some individual, or some entity, right? So all of this marketing have happened, have gotten to the point to where our lives from even when the Constitution was written within the United States to where we wasn't even counted as whole human beings has been instilled within generations for generations. So the biases that exist in relations to anybody of African descent has caused just overall a perspective that allow people to look at us that we have no wealth. And when you have an individual that grew up where they have no wealth and they have no cultural identity, right? It do fall back to where they're gonna look at everything that's marketed to them. So I think what we need to transition into, as far as like just looking at, okay, our blackness, the challenges that we face, is also right now with the Black Nine movement, the violence that's coming towards us, not only from those from other cultural backgrounds, but also ourselves, right? The violence that we inflict on ourselves because we don't feel we have any cultural relevance, or we don't have no relevance at all. And the only relevance that we have is within sometimes the 2 block radius that we live within, right? So I think that's one of the things, because of time, we really need to get into to make sure that we have a well-rounded conversation. You want to add to that, Ye?
Definitely. I think we need to hop on that. We are going to continue talking about violence in the next episode of the Outlook Africa Roundtable, and it's going to be August 1st, the same time. So stay tuned with us as well. But we're not going to rush this. We're going to get off, respecting everyone's time, but we are going to at least start talking about this violence and how it shows up in our community. So we all talked about identity. We needed to spend a lot of time on there. I think the conversation took a life of itself, and I allow it in my opinion. SJ as moderator, and SJ did too, because it is a conversation that is needed. We need to come together as Black people. We need to understand our strength. We need to understand our culture in order for us to shape our narratives. Or our narrative. We need to understand, we need to be put in. I think it was Bobby who said, how can you pour out when you can only pour out what you have in? So this conversation is pouring in, so people come from a position of power, community power, when they are addressing the question such as what is defined as Blackness, right? This is going to be weaved throughout the roundtable. We're definitely not going to leave this conversation. It's going to be included in every discussion, because when we show up, we do not show up without our race. We show up as Black people. We show up. And when you go for an interview, be it if you're in Diaspora, you go for an interview, you show up as that. If you are on the continent, you're probably walking around Black and proud, but you still have issues there that we deal with, colorism and so forth on the continent as well. So we have lots to talk about with the roundtable series, but this time we can't leave the first episode without talking about police brutality. It is what people are talking about at their kitchen table. It is what people are concerned about. This is what is holding, for instance, in the U.S., African American mothers are staying up, and maybe fathers, not maybe, but definitely fathers as well, are staying up thinking about how to train the child to ensure that the child comes home safe. So I want us to talk about police brutality, how it shows up, but not only from a diaspora standpoint. I want us to talk about how it shows up here in the US, how it shows up on the continent. And we know it shows up on the continent as well, but maybe from a different perspective. So I would chime in and say, for the continent per se, we might see police brutality showing up linking with politics. We know sometimes when you have elections, you see where the presidents use the police force as their army. Not to say it didn't happen here recently. I'm just saying we see that commonly there, where police brutality, we see it connected to politics a lot. We also we see it connected to socioeconomic status on the continent. The police pull you over and say, give me, if you're from Liberia, would say it this way, give me a Latin, let me pass, like bribe me so you can pass. And that shows up there. Okay, it might be in the form of harassment, but it is still, it sometimes it still leads to situations where we know that it is police brutality. It shows up in when people are protesting, right? We've seen it happen across Africa when people are protesting, and the police force respond to that, and the response is as if the military has shown up. So we see police brutality across our Black community, across our continent, within the Caribbean, and so forth. Right now, we see the Black Lives Matter movement here in the U.S., and we see it picking up internationally, not only because a police brutality only happens here and they're in solidarity here, but it's also picking up because people can relate to it as well from their perspective within their various countries. So I'm opening up the roundtable. Let's just talk about how police brutality, what is your view on it? And then you can wrap it because of time. You can include in that conversation, what do you think we need to do to have that change, to effect that change?
Um, I'm going to start by in the military. I always reference two things: Army and God. In the military, they tell you when you come in as a soldier, they have to break you down. That's why you see a basic training. When I got off the bus, some soldier, some drill sergeant was like, "Rrrr," and I turned to him. I was like, "What are you yelling?" And he went off. He went off. The idea of that is to break you down as a civilian so that they can build you up in their doctrine as a soldier. And I did not understand or the implications of that. But we see that in our culture as a Black individual, as I'm watching the world as it's unfolding, then you begin to see that everything kind of pieces in together. There are psychological experiments where children are, in essence, have been conditioned to believe that Black is bad and white is good. Now, when you grow up with that mentality, you see it proliferate throughout life. The Black man is bad, the Black man is violent, the Black man is dirty. Everything Black is associated with wrong and evil, but everything white is associated with good. Now, we see that has been perpetuated in not only the psychological, the cultural, and sociological desensitization of the Black man. When we think nothing of ourselves, then we are sure to be violent. The need to want to do better, the need to want to rise up above the challenge is killed. When they tell you you are nothing from yay high, and then you grow up to believing that you are nothing, the idea is to then start to act in the way you have been defined. So if they tell you, I'm living by all the biases that is the biases of Black people, that we are nothing, we will never amount to anything, we are bad, we are this, then there will be no reason for me to try. Now, for me as a Christian, here comes where the difference comes. When God made me, He made me in His image. He gave me the ability and gave me authority. If I am nothing, then what authority do I have? But when I start to believe in the kingdom mindset, in the mindset that says, I am a princess of this world, or a princess of Zion, of Mount Zion, then I guess it goes back to the identity of self begins to change. Why am I being perceived as such? Or is what they say about me true? Can I change my perception? But then if I look at police brutality and how it is affecting my life, then should I stay in this place of constant anxiety and depression? Is that serving me best? No, it is not. Then should I go around killing my brother because they say he is bad? No. On the contrary, if my brother does not know his identity, I think it is my job and obligation to educate him, to know that you are a king. Whatever they have told you, you are not Mufasa. You are who is it? The Lion King. What's his name? I don't remember. But there are Mufasas out there that would try to tell you otherwise. Recognizing that you are a king and then walking in that kingship changes the narrative. So if we are being portrayed as mediocre, when our minds are changed to understand who we are and the power that we have, that's why you would find that a lot of people are afraid, because with the resilience, the love, you give a Black man power, oh, he can do wonderful things. So, but if they can train you to mentally degrade yourself, then their work is done. They don't have to do it. But when you think you walk in that power and authority, thinking of the love and the resilience that is coming from your community, or you are empowered to do great things, then every other race is threatened by you just by your skin color. It is not about how much strength you have. Black people, we are strong people, physically and mentally. But when they break you down, then you cannot operate in your physical strength or in your spiritual strength. So it is not necessarily, when we think of violence, we think of the physical aspect of it. But violence also is in the mind. How your mind affects your body, your health. When you look at the Black population, we have a lot of diabetes and all these illnesses that come from what? Eating unhealthily. Also, the socio-economical statuses that keep us down. Why is that? When you are kept down, then the white man or whoever race or the powers that are trying to be would have won. But when Black people start to rise in their strength, in their numbers, in their resilience, everybody else is scared. That's why we have brutality. Then you hear this nonsense, Black on Black crime. Do we hear of white on white crime? No, it's simply crime. Then why is it that when crime happens in the Black community, it is labeled Black on Black crime? That is simply to heighten the crime that is happening in Black communities, whereas it is simply crime. So when they tell you all these things of why you are not good enough, and you start to believe it, then we are falling into the violence.
Yeah, so I think that I mean, all like beautiful points. As soon as you started talking about the military, I immediately thought back to what crime prevention and ensuring safety came about. You know, those systems were established to police slaves and freed slaves, usually like by force of intimidation. And we still see those remnants and those foundations right now. And same thing in Africa on the continent, you know, it all comes from like a perspective, ensuring safety wasn't for the community perspective or the well-being of the masses. It was specifically mandated from a top-down approach from leadership who were like really far removed from everyone's day-to-day, right? And I think that like what we can do is, you know, police are trained to respond rigorously and by force, and to make sure that they are keeping up with those standards that were set, six antiquated standards from years ago. And I think that what we can do is, you know, have our first responders be like EMTs for health situations, and then counselors and for any like mental health or like domestic violence, for them to be able to determine, is this really a situation where we need to call the police in, violence, the ones who are trained to, like you were saying, to bring civilians down to like a civilian level, right? So I think it's just, there's so many steps, but I've always been telling people, you know, a lot of funding is not, people are talking about like defund the police, but all that means is just reallocate the funding to these counselors and these social services who can determine whether or not police even need to be there.
I also, Emmanuel SJ has an interesting point on that, but Amel has the criminal justice background. So I'm just going to also go to Amel, and then we can just to hear your perspective from the criminal justice background.
Hi. I agree with what everyone's saying. I studied criminal justice with a forensic track, but I also took a police reform course. Um, I'm losing my train of thought. Sorry. um, Maybe go to somebody else and then I'll see.
Okay, maybe I can word it like this: from your experience in the court, because you volunteer in the court system as well. From your experience, share with us your experience in the court when you what the predominant race you see showing up when it comes to those you have to go. What is the predominant race, and what do you think? Why do you think that is? Do you think it is balanced? Do you think there's equity issues when it comes to even arrest and everything around that?
There's definitely a lot of issues. One thing I have seen that, and I've done my research on, was that a lot of blacks, they're wrongfully convicted into the system. So they're being arrested for things that not necessarily white people will be arrested for. There's we definitely need to like
Address that. Totally.
Yeah.
I understand it can be, especially if you work in the system, sometimes I understand
Yeah.
how it is to speak on that. And I definitely would like Blessing to add to that as well. There are people, and yes, there are people sometimes accused, and we know that we've heard of, that is something what is it called? There's a project that actually is working on getting people conviction reversed because of so many wrongfully accused. So if anybody else want to come in, Blessing, Ishe, I know you also have an interesting perspective on police reform and your take on it. My take on it is that if we are saying that the law enforcement is here, definitely the door is going to come in. If law enforcement is here to protect us, then we should have that same standard of service across race. No race should be treated. I don't care if it happens to one person or 50 or less. Once it happens to one because of the skin of the color of your skin, that is one too much, right? So I think it is something that definitely we have to address. And I'm going to go to Dora because we've had this conversation and I know she has a lot to chime in on this. So
Okay, where do I begin? It is so much when it comes to the issue of police brutality. I think one of the main things we need to focus on is fear of the black man in particular, the fear of just the black race. I have friends that have gone through the police academy. When they're going through their training, there are certain things that they're not trained on. That social aspect, that what to do when you encounter certain, they're trained pretty broadly on what to do when you encounter certain situations. Not much on race, not much on, social, economical backgrounds, etc. But when you look at the history of this country in particular, and you look at how much money has been poured out from various politicians, even ones that we admire as Black people, most of us admire people like Bill Clinton. But when you look at people like, Reagan, Clinton, and you look at how much money has been poured in. I was watching a documentary on, and I have a background in criminal justice as well. I have my minor was in criminal justice. And I guarantee you, none of this stuff was taught in those courses that I took because it focuses on the broader criminal justice system. But it doesn't really touch on the race relations, how it relates to us as a people, and how we're really, really undermined throughout the whole system. There's a documentary on Netflix called 13th. If you haven't watched it, I would highly recommend watching it. And it breaks down just how much money went into the prison system within those administrations, and just how much the numbers went up because of that. There's so much more to it. It is a corporate cycle. People don't think about that aspect of the prison system. There's the corporate aspect of it. These are, big companies that are contracted out to provide certain prison services, et cetera. And that, they need people to come in there so that those companies can all get their money's worth, et cetera. We are really, really undermined, but I think really it goes back to fear from the media, from just so many other things. Think about movies like The Birth of a Nation. This is all the way back in like the 1900s. But you have, certain movies like that with the black man raping a white woman. That portrayal in itself, so many other things that have gone on because of certain portrayals and the fear that most people see, most white people see when they look at us. So I think we really have to tackle, it's a mindset that unfortunately we cannot change. It needs to be, people need to make up their mind to change that mindset that, hey, if I see a black person, the first thing that does not come to my mind is fear. They have to change that mindset. Not much that we can do on our end. It's just that they have to make up their mind to change that. And then we need to tackle the media and what they're portraying of us. So it's too much.
Yeah.
So
I would actually, sorry, I would actually like to comment just so my experience when it comes to police brutality goes both ways, right? I have been in situations to where I have gun drawn on me, just because of the simple fact that I was black, right? I was going to an all white school. It was graduation. I walked in. There's only 4 black kids in the school, right? I just happened to, I'm African, so we always come everywhere late. So I happened to come to my graduation practice late, but one of the white kids got beat up by one of the black kids. And my little black bug came late to the graduation, and I had all the gun put into my face. Um, I have been, when I went off to college, for years, I had to go to court fighting a forced charge of resisting arrest that was put on me. Um, I have been pulled over because I was living in North Providence in a predominant white neighborhood. I was pulled over every night. So, as far as the experiences of what you realize with police, like having police try to put you in a situation to where your life is messed up, and then getting in a situation to where you see the other side of policing, right? So in 2010, my brother was murdered. And if it wasn't for the police department, we would have never found the murderer of my brother. Like they went above and beyond to make sure that they caught it. So I experienced the bad guys and then I experienced the good guys. What it made me realize that as much as we come and we look at just what's going on right now with the police brutality and everything, we have to realize that it's on an individualized basis, right? So each one of these cases that happen based on the police officer themselves, right? So when you look at that, it's like any corporation. When you sit down and you look at it's the individual that's causing these problems, what is allowing them to have the confidence to be able to do what it is that they're doing, right? And for me, what I started to realize, I said, listen, if the police department didn't have the police union as strong as they was, right? The police union have lawyers on deck to fight anything. So there's many different components that allow a lot of these officers to feel confident enough to go within our community and do what it is that they do. Um, they cannot go into other communities and do that, especially in New York, where it's like the Jewish community police themselves. So there's many different solutions we can come up with. So what it starts with us. We can go out, we can march, order these march and say, okay, we want police reforms. But are we willing to, at the end of the day, structure ourselves in a way to where we allow the police department to respect our community, right? So it comes back to just really, in my opinion, from what I have experienced, it's like, it's funny. It's a quote full of. There's a Mandela quote that that totally motivated me. It said, as we let our light shine, we unconsciously give others permission to do the same,
yeah.
right? What that made me realize is that in order for me to do anything, I have to bring about change. So we can talk about the change, but individually, we have to now start within our community, start within our background, start within our country, and start setting the example for the next generation to take it to the next level, right?
Mhm.
Because this has been going on for years. This police, where everybody feel, oh, it's going to be a new reform, it's been going on for years. The only difference is that, guess what, there was a pandemic, right? Everybody was getting unemployment, and then there's social media. That's the only difference that happened in this opportunity. We have social media, everybody got a camera, right? Everybody now could put out the attention without going to the necessary media outlet. And a lot of people are home getting unemployment, so they can march for as long as they march. But what are we going to do on an individualized basis to let that light shine, that we influence the next generation going forward, and we bring about the necessary change that needs to happen? Because we have to attack it to where there's going to be actual change, and not 20 years from now we go back to the same thing to where we're getting murdered the way we was getting murdered before. Yeah,
That is a
so
that
I don't know.
that that is a really good point. I at this time, I know we're gonna start wrapping up. We're way over time. This is such a good conversation, but we're coming back to the table on August 1st. We're going to start here because we have to finish up this discussion, and as well as we're going to lead into sexual violence as well. The roundtable is going to address violence first, how it shows up in our community, and then obviously we're going to talk everything else. What we need to do to transform our community from the economics to everything else. We are going to discuss that. So I say if anyone has a dying point you want to make, maybe we can go around the table starting with Blessing. We can go around the table and we can make that dying point and then we can wrap up. I feel like we could all just catch dinner at the round table right here and stay here for a little bit, but that's okay. We'll start with Blessing and then go around and go around with everyone. Oh, to everyone.
So I think what I kind of agree with everyone. I think really what we're all alluding to is this idea that people have been thought throughout centuries to view black a certain way, and then men have always been thought to view that to view black in a very positive manner. So going back again to my Mandela quote, I think the important thing that we need to understand is that it can be unlearned. And I am a big advocate for culture. And I feel like culture is one of the main ways that we can kind of teach people within our community, but also people outside the Black community, kind of how to unlearn the perspective that they have learned of us. Um, and just how to understand that at the end of the day, we all share a common humanity. You bleed just like I bleed. So how do we do this? How do we live in peace in our communities?
Awesome. Thank you, Blessing. Bobby?
Okay, and thank you for that because I did have something to piggyback off of what Blessing said. It can definitely be unlearned, and for the simple fact, and it doesn't have to take centuries. Even though our identity has been just skewed and stripped and everything for centuries, we do have different platforms now. We don't have to call Channel 9 News and say, "Hey, I have something to say." We don't have to do that anymore. And so now there's millions of people across the world reshaping our identities right now. And also, and that's probably will be something that you all, can discuss the next time. We have to also find a way to where what we're building, we have to strip away that fear. And it kind of goes back towards that quote that I had from Nelson Mandela earlier about hope, making choices out of hope instead of out of fear. For instance, every time we build something, it's torn down. Every Black Panther, we tried to police ourselves, but that was dismantled. Okay, fine, do it again. That's something that we don't do as a community. We talk about faith, but we don't really operate out of hope. We have faith that we can do a thing, and then once it gets torn down, then we stop. And so the Jewish, they police themselves. Sure enough, the Asians, they have things that they do for themselves. Sure enough. Do you not think that those things were threatened at one time or another, but they persisted? And so we have to continue to do that. And it just all goes back to that whole concept of identity. We have bought into the myth, and that's just all it is. And so now we have to just go ahead and tear that down for ourselves and go on a public scale and tear it down as well. Every time we get knocked down, we get back up individually, but we need to start getting up as a community. And we need to continue to get up, get up, get up. And that way things will change.
Oh, thank you. Awesome. See, I've been telling everyone get off mute, and now I'm doing it. So awesome. We with Dora, Wafame, Amel, Tiki. If we all could wrap up in that, we can definitely go in that order.
Okay, I think my final point would be it's all about unlearning what we've been taught. We need to get out of certain mindsets. We need to start thinking differently as a people on things that we can do. Like Bobby said, things that we can do to help ourselves, to help our community. It always amazes me when you look at the Jewish population in New York and certain areas, the Asian communities, and you see how much they help each other, how much they build each other up. We as a community need to get in that mindset and really, like recently, I'm loving all these images of buying Black and supporting Black-owned businesses, etc. But we need to maintain that momentum and always, have that idea of building each other up as a community.
Yeah, I think everyone's had, I mean, thank you so much for everyone on this panel. Like I can't process, there's a lot I want to say, but I can't articulate it in this short time. But one thing that I'm thinking of is like where right now there's a big human reset happening. We're setting a new standard on how to be humans and how to coexist with one another. And the topic at hand is really just reclaiming our narrative and our identity. Everyone is trying to do that in their day-to-day life, and now this is happening on like a large global scale. But one thing that I tell myself and that I tell other people that I need to give myself more grace and do it for myself is, you can't serve a mission and others, and you can't serve others if you don't serve yourself, right? So rest often, take a break. This is not going to happen overnight. This is going to be as exhausting and daunting as it has been. I don't know about you guys, but like panic attacks and anxiety and just like not being able to sleep, like this is just the start of it. And I'm trying to make sure that like I take care of myself so that I can take care of our people and like our community. Because it takes a village, and I think that's a concept from the continent to the diaspora. It takes a village, and we got to keep powering through.
Just I think what I was trying to go into my thoughts were all over the place, but I think I was going into talking about masculine incarceration, but we can table that for next time. But bottom line, I think that we definitely need to all unite. We definitely need to be on the front line of our narrative, take control. We all have a platform. Everyone's on social media. That could be our take, to make some change, make some movement, take control of our own narrative.
Um, I actually wanted to say something, and it's funny. And Yeku actually verified this. I have not been on social media doing live. This is actually my first time. But the reason why I did it is literally because of a Mandela quote. He literally said, um, "Fools multiply when the wise men are silent." Right. So if what we're doing now basically is what's going to spark that change and what everybody's doing. So if we as the people that have sit down and edify ourselves, make it our mission, our purpose to go out there and re-educate those that are sitting down and not receiving the information, that's the only way we're going to change the situation moving forward. So one of the things that I have accepted is that I have to do everything in my power and I have to do everything that I'm capable of doing to make sure that change come about. So in overall, what I'm just trying to say is like, thank you guys, because this was a gratifying experience. And this is definitely something I will keep doing to make sure that we change our environment. So thank you, Yay. And thank you guys for allowing me onto your platform because I know it was supposed to be all ladies. So thank you very much.
So, well, we got called out for being mostly women on here, but
Ooh.
but actually we responded. We responded. So can I just defend my sisters a little bit? We responded to a very close call for everyone to come on. So thanks to my sisters, but thank you too
Before we
as
close
well.
out, before we close
Yeah,
out, yeah,
we showed up.
um,
That's what happened. But thanks to you two for coming on. We really do appreciate it. And we're going to keep going around as well. I think we have Tiki and Blessing. And I think that's it, right? To wrap up.
um, all of what you ladies said and Harold stood out. I started to write to make notes so I don't forget. And you all brought it back to your quotes, and that was very wonderful. But to address something, Harold had mentioned to understanding both sides, um, and that's absolutely true for me. In one of my experiences, sometimes when I get into painful situations where I need to clear my mind, speed is the way for me to go. One day I got into my vehicle, I was driving at least 90 miles an hour. And before I knew it, this cop was like, feel my back. And I kept going for like 2 more miles. And when he came out, he was looking so mad. And then I put on, at the time I had a Honda Accord. I put on the signaling sign and it showed up the camera. So when he came, after trying to yell at me for all of 3 seconds, he got cut off with the camera. And then we began to talking and about the illness. His mom had that too. And he was like, well, you know what? It's okay. And he drove with me over 60 miles back to my house at that speed. He was going at that speed and me driving behind him. Why? So that I can get the exhilaration I needed in order to feel. So when we talk of police brutality, not all of them are bad. I have had some excellent experiences like this one, and I've had some really horrible ones too. We're not going to go into that, but it brings me to the idea of understanding change, which all of you ladies have talked about. And for me, why is that important? My Mandela quote say, be passionate. Be passionate about what you do because everybody can rise up above their circumstances. And not only does my is my passion rooted in my passion to know God as well, it takes me back to the verse Philippians 4:13. We can do all things through Christ who strengthened us. But somebody mentioned, Harold, that was you. You talked about the wise and the foolish. That's Proverbs 8 and 9, which I read this morning. So everything kind of folds in when I look at life circumstances and I look at what the Word of God is telling me. At least I use the Word of God in everything about my life and everything that society says. Well, when he says in his word, my people who are called by my name shall turn from their wicked ways and seek me. He shall change their situations. And America was built in a foundation of Christianity or of based in God. But now we see that we have quickly pivoted from what he is asking us to do, and we see all this chaos unleashed upon this land. So what does that tell me? I have to be passionate about me. I have to be passionate about educating the people around me. I have to be passionate about uplifting the community in which I live. I have to be passionate about introducing and spreading the word of God where it is lacking. Because when we know the word of God, or when we know how to dissect it, we as a people, we are educated, and then we don't act in the criminal, we don't act out the criminality that we are portrayed in. So for me, that quote and my passion for life, or my passion for one individual growth, individual success, ripples out, and the passion for God ties into one nice bundle. And indeed, thank you, Yeto, and thank you, all you ladies, for having me as well on this. This has been excellent.
Awesome. Blessing.
So my closing point will basically kind of just, it's still routed back to the whole my original Mandela quote. and I'm also gonna piggyback off of what Ms. Tiki said. I just think we have to be passionate not only about solving the issues that that's like police brutality, like trying to find ways to solve that, or trying to find ways to solve poverty within our community, but we also have to find a way to communicate our culture. We have to find a way to communicate who we are as people to our community as a whole, and also to other communities. Um, and then again, why I'm so passionate about culture, and I think it's so important that we promote our culture, because when people see you through your culture, it connects them back to that common humanity that we all have. And now it's no longer this person, this Black person that I saw on TV that, like sometimes as we're portrayed as violent, but it's this human being that behaves the exact same way that I behave, or I love their culture. And once you begin to really once you really begin to like really learn someone culture, you kind of are learning about them. It's correlated. So I think it's very important that we all push culture in our solution. And I haven't seen it being pushed a lot, except for the Arab Africa side. But I really think as we go about solving these situations dealing within the Black community, it's important that we push culture, because we need to realize that what we're fighting against is an ideology. It's years and years and years of um, these narratives that have just been passed down, this perspective that has been passed down, and that has basically just tore us all apart. So I think it's very important that we include culture in it as well.
Awesome. And just so I don't do like how I did when I started with the Mandela quote, everyone, we've gone around the table, right, with our final final comments. And I could just get see heads. Okay. So I just want to say first and foremost, thanks to everyone for showing up at the table. It wasn't intentional that we have more women at the table, but it just happened. And Wafa may pointed out, like, we didn't even realize it until you said it. And most times we see that in the opposite way. So this is good. This is really good to have my sisters at the table as well, a majority this time around. Because sometimes, even I was in a meeting this morning and I was the only female there. So it's good to see that turn around. Not to say we don't want our brothers, please. The round table is open to you. If you want to be at the table on any of our future discussions, please reach out to our Africa, either inbox us on our page, and Blessing or Amel will definitely be in touch with you and run and place you in, and pluck you in where you would like to be plugged, giving you the topics we have coming up. So thank you. I want to start off first by saying why our Rock Africa Roundtable as I wrap up. I've been putting my views here and there, but this is, as a moderator, you facilitate conversations. So before we wrap up, I am Liberian, yes, and I say that because it is my identity. The Rock Africa Roundtable says bonded by roots and defined by labels. Every conversation you heard here, from Tiki to Blessing, Amel, Bobby, Harold, Dora, and Wafame, they actually came from their definition of self, right? So no matter if they were defining the color of their skin, their career, their religion, no matter what was being defined, it is actually how they define themselves. For me, that is very key. Knowing your identity at the core. Now, people may say why you identify as your nationality most times. I am obviously a Black woman. That is a given. You can't take that away. That's just a given. That's the first way I show up. When I show up anywhere, I show up as this Black, dark-skinned, chocolate-loving sister that I love, and I show up in totality. And for those of you who know me, I show up boldly too. Because guess what? If you can't stand me, it's not on me, it's on you. I'm not going to feel rejected by you, nor am I going to be diminished because you fear me. or my skin. So that's not possible in my opinion. So when we start to build our mindset like that, it shifts something within how we show up, even at interviews, right? But I find myself at a period of time showing up at interviews a little bit nervous, and it was because most times I knew I had to work twice as hard to get that job than somebody else, especially working in public health and working in epidemiology, where we see a predominant white. So I knew that if I show up on an interview, I'm not just showing up as me, I'm showing up for the rest of my black sisters and brothers coming to that interview table. So my interview was not just about me getting that job, it was always about me showing up at my best because of my blackness. Let me just put it that way, of blackness. So this brings a lot of weight, a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety on the black community. And once we start to adjust that mindset and transform our mind as, you know what, we are not going to be intimidated by what you fear. We are going to walk in who we are in totality. That shift helps to change you individually. And once we are able to start saying that collective individual change, we can then push that out in our interpersonal, in our community space, and have an effect on society as a whole. So I am so grateful for all of the comments. This was so engaging. We went over time. We do apologize to the viewers, but it was so engaging, and we hope you had an amazing time. As I even speak today, we lost Representative John Lewis. So we say we our condolence to the United States of America, to the U.S. Congress, and to his family. This is definitely a man of honor has fallen, and we salute to him, and we salute to his accomplishment. And our Rock Africa Roundtable we might not be on the street per se, like in the 60s had John Lewis and all of them were. But what we are doing, we're using this platform that is so vast. Right now, we have people tuning in from Liberia, from Ghana, from all over, and they're even here in the US watching us and commenting. And so we are reaching way beyond we can even expect. And even after this video is going to be on the Rock Africa page, and people can take the time to listen, learn, and even start to think about what Blackness is to them, what violence is to them, what it is to reshape the narrative of the African and African diaspora community to them. So I'm so excited. This was a great conversation. I want to say thank you to my co-moderator, my brother. and we would stay hours talking about so many issues. And if you hear me say SJ, I know you see his name there, but I'm so used to it. If you hear him say yeah, it's because of how long we bounce back and forth so many issues on this particular topic, and even more. And as an African American, as the African community and African diaspora community, it is time for us to truly rise above our fears. I'm fearful to go to Africa, or I'm feared to get to understand what the African American community is like, or I'm fearful to do. I'm fearing to do this, I should say, rather. We should rise above all of our fears and come together to make sure that we build a strong community. Other communities are doing it. We are seeing it in other communities, and we ourselves, we can do that, and it will definitely give us the power we need, the community power we need to shift the needle, whether it's police brutality or whether it's even in our economic status. It will give us that community power we need. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you to the viewers. We are gonna end with a quote that Wafame actually said. Mandela has a quote on fear. So I'm gonna give her. I don't know if she can see it right now, but I am going to pull that up. And since she brought it up, we're going to turn it over to her so that way she can end with that particular quote for all of us. Once again, thanks. Please follow iRock Africa on Instagram, and like us on Facebook. Share this video, even if it's not live and you're watching it later, watching the replay, please share it. We are going to come back on August 1st, and hopefully I got that date right, but 2 Saturdays from now, with more conversations on, we're starting off with violence. So the next topic is sexual violence. And that goes from rape to various types of sexual assault to FGM to sex trafficking, and it's going to be engaging. So come ready, and if you're interested interested in being around the table for that, please reach out to us. Thank you. We appreciate you. We love you. Have a blessed day from me, and I'm turning it over to and from all of us. And thank you to the panelists. I'm turning it over to Wafame to end us with that Mandela code. Thank you.
Okay, I just scrolled up and found it. So it says, I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid. Okay, I'm going to do that again. I have to close it off strong. Okay, I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear.
Thank you. And have a good day, everyone.
Later.